Hi guys, good morning and welcome. This is Primus Veku, and here we are again at Primus Learning. And this is a special video today. It was requested by one of our our viewers or one of our subscribers at our channel at Primus Learning. And this video is a data pipeline, guys, and it's long. It's long because it is an amazing video. It walks you through step by step how to create a data pipeline in AWS, guys. And this data pipeline is one that if you use in your interviews, like if you just copy this and paste on your interviews, guys, you are assured of nailing your job either as an AWS solutions architect or an AWS data engineer, right? So this video right here, this walkthrough, this project, it's a huge project that you can have on your resumes. People have been asking me for projects. This right here is a complete end-to-end project for you. If you are interviewing, if you are in IT and you're looking for that project that will nail your interview, please follow this progress, this project right to the end, right? And I'm giving the project credit to João Pedro. I used his content, his article. I think it's written on Science Direct, or yeah, I think it's Science Direct or so. And so I'll be walking you through this step by step with the implementation. And so what are we aiming to do? We're aiming to walk through a data pipeline from start to finish, where we have orchestration, where we use different tools in AWS to extract data, to massage that data, clean it up, and get the type of data that we want in the format that we want, guys. And so this is a real end-to-end project. You can see we have up to 14 steps that would follow right to the end of this project. And so let me present to you the architecture of the project, right? So this is kind of an architecture diagram of what we will be doing this morning. I put this together also extracting or sourcing it from the João Pedro project on Science Direct or Towards Science or something, one of those pages. All right. So guys, this is an end-to-end. You can see that this is an end-to-end architectural diagram. You can see Airflow here. Apache Airflow is an orchestrator where you can orchestrate and run your processes and monitor them and visualize them and so on and so forth. We will talk more about this tool right here. AWS has a managed Airflow instance that's called MWAA. That's I think managed Airflow something. I'm forgetting the name, but yes, AWS has an Apache environment. But the one we're using today would be on-premise. So we'll launch an on-premise Airflow environment. For those who are hearing about Airflow for the first time, if you're DevOps engineers, guys, this is a neat one. Most organizations are using Airflow for orchestration. All right, and then we have a trigger here, right? You see this same trigger. I would have put this same trigger right here. So there will be a trigger that triggers an Airflow process, right? And it simply gets, so we get data and put it in an S3 bucket. So you see this process here. This is uploading PDF files. So there will be a process that runs, grabs data, and uploads that data. See this part here is PDF data. It will grab PDF data from a website and drop the PDF data in a bucket, in an S3 bucket. We'll name the bucket. We'll see how we'll name the bucket very soon. And so there is another trigger, which is an S3 event trigger. So that trigger will, once that data has been dropped in an S3 bucket, that trigger triggers a Lambda function that runs and extracts that data, right? And extracts the data, the raw data that's stored here in PDF format. You extract the data into text format, right? So there's a Lambda function in front, would have a Lambda function in front that extracts the data, from PDF format to raw text format in JSON and stores that JSON in an S3 bucket, right? So we have PDF data out there on the website. We run a process that grasps that data and puts it in that same PDF format here in an S3 bucket. And then an S3 trigger triggers a Lambda function that extracts that data, that, kind of gets that data off of the PDF format into JSON format, right? And puts it in an S3 bucket. That S3 bucket, it will be a folder in an S3 bucket called contents. And then from that contents, you see there is an arrow that goes up this way, right? So a glue process, a glue job will therefore get this data from here and process that data to become and extract some information from it. So I'll talk about the data very soon. Once that information has been extracted by the glue process, we would then put that data in a processed bucket, which is an S3 bucket again. The folder here will be called processed. And of course, it will be CSV data with some specific things that we want, right? So this is the architecture. You can see it is neat. So what is this time around, it is not S3, it is not an S3 event that is triggering this glue job. It is, of course, this airflow process, right? So the airflow process will trigger the start of this one right up till the data gets in here. Once the data gets in here, this process again will trigger this, to come in and get the data from here and process the data another way. So it will extract information, it does some kind of cleaning of that data and then put it back here. So that's the architecture of what we'll be doing today, guys. You can screenshot this and use this in your interviews. If I have this in front of me in an interview, how would you not nail that interview, guys? So that's what we'll be doing. That's the architecture of what we'll be doing today. And so let's talk about the tools that we'll use for this project. So we'll use S3, where we'll upload data and create different folders for the reasons that I highlighted above. And then there will be a Lambda function that will be used to extract that data from the PDF to raw JSON format. You remember I just told you about that. Then we'll have a glue job that will be processing data to get the questions from the data. So the data, let's talk about glue first. So we use glue to extract the information, the PDFs or the raw data this time to make it meaningful, to get meaning out of that data. And then Airflow, as I said, is an orchestrator, and it's a tool that is used to develop, organize, and order and schedule and also monitor tasks using what is called DAGS. It uses what's called DAGS, and the meaning of DAGS is direct acyclic graph. That's the meaning of that. It basically uses Python to be able to do that. I'll show you how that works, right? And to talk about the data, as I said earlier, the data is from the Brazilian ENEM site. ENEM is National Exam of High School on Literal Translation. So that's the meaning of ENEM. I think it's ENEM or something. So it's the Brazilian National Exam for High Schools on Literal Translation. So that is the data we'll be getting. And this exam occurs yearly, right? And so we want to go into that data and get the data every year. We'll use this data to do some data extraction and questions from the exams that are set. So every year the exam is set, and so we'll go into the PDF. It's stored in the form of PDFs on the website, right, on this organization website. So we'll go on there, grab the PDFs and put the PDFs in S3. So those PDFs have about 45 questions each. Each exam has 45 questions according to the year. So year one would have, let's say year 2010 would have 4 sessions. So we'll have 4 PDFs. right? We have 4 PDFs, exam 1, 2, 3, 4. So year 1A, year 1B, year 1C, and so on. So we extract the PDF, put it in S3. That's what the first step we'll be doing, right? And then from there we can go ahead. And the aim of this is to get the PDF format, get that changed. So we'll change the format from PDF to JSON. So remove that data or scrape it out into JSON. Once it's become JSON, we'll then extract the particular questions. We don't want to get all the information about it. We want to extract just the exam questions in the various years. So order it in the various years, right? So yeah, we'll start from 2010. So 2010, you get the 2010, extract all the questions from 2010. 2011, you extract the questions. That's a real use case. You can do that. Go to a website, scrape some data that you want, get the information that you need. That's how organizations do. And then they can use that data and run analytics on top of it. That's a pure real project that can actually be done, guys. So if you're out there and you have this kind of use case, hit us. We can help you build something like this, right? And so that's the data. And then we have different steps that would follow. So the first step would be we will create an Airflow environment. Remember, I mentioned Apache Airflow. We'll create an Airflow environment, from where, we will from where we'll be running our orchestration. So that's like our triggering mechanism for this project. So the first step is to create it and then create our S3 buckets. We'll name our S3 bucket this. And then we'll create an IAM role that will be used, whose credentials will be used for this project. And then we'll go into the Airflow environment and make sure that we have it. And we create some connections in there. And after that, we'll upload files in AWS using the Airflow process. And then we'll continue from there. So there are 14 steps in this project, guys. So let's get after it. The first process is to go into this directory. You see where there is Docker Compose, right? So let me explain the structure of this file. So my files here, I have a folder called pipelines, and under pipelines, I have a folder called data pipeline on AWS, right? Data pipeline Airflow AWS. So under this, we have what is called DAGS, a DAGS folder. I'll be explaining this as we go along. Under the DAGS folder, that is where you would have your DAG process run. This is your DAG. This is where your DAG is defined. And a DAG is a Python file that has some functions that run inside. You see, I named my DAG Primus Learning Process NM PDF .py. And then we have a Docker file here because we're using Docker to bring up our Airflow environment, right? And so I have a Docker file that has been built in here. This is the Docker file to install a few things and get my environment ready. Then I have a requirement.txt with some things that I need, right? All right. After that, we have a logs file where we just capture our logs. We have a plugin where we use some plugins. Then we have the script folder. In this folder, I have a Lambda function. We would use this Lambda function, as I mentioned. We use it in the project. I have a zipped folder here, and it is a folder of I was doing a layer, but I decided to just upload the files differently. So I have a layer, the information about the layer. I'll explain what a layer is in AWS, a Lambda layer, and all that. Then we have some Python files here that you'll be seeing later, and so on and so forth, guys. So these are the various processes that will be running, right? And then I have this file here called Docker Compose. This file is called Docker Compose. And we want to use it to bring up the Airflow environment. And as I mentioned here, the first step that we'll use is let me go down a little bit. So the first step is to create the Airflow environment by running Docker Compose up, right? And I'm indicating here that you should make sure that the path where the Docker compose file is found is where you are. So I'm inside this, and you can see this is my, let me block this out. You see, this is where the Docker compose is, and it's inside data pipeline. So it's at the root of data pipeline. So if I do data pipeline like this, open it up, let me close these other ones so that you see it's at the root of data pipeline. That's why I'm in data pipeline Airflow. Now under here, I should run Docker compose up. Why am I running this Docker compose up? Because I want to start an instance of Airflow. So the code that is in here, you see, is defining my Airflow environment. It's just Docker compose YAML files. So as a DevOps engineer, I'm sure you've learned about Docker compose. We don't want to explain all this today, but yes, if you run this, you will get it. I'll add access to this repository on the description section of this video, guys. So you have all the code ready. So let's run Docker compose up to get our environment going. So I want to create an Airflow environment. So it's running, guys. It will take a while. So you see what it's doing here. It's extracting all the information and it will be starting your Airflow environment very soon. So it's getting ready. Airflow already exists. You see the Airflow environment already exists, but until you see this that image there, know that your Airflow is not yet up. This image, this is the Airflow image right here. So once it's like that, let it run, let all the servers run, because Airflow will need to run different servers, right? You see, it has a web server one, it will have another server for different reasons. So it does that, and it has worker servers. So you see worker nodes that it has, it brings up, so that once this has run and it's running, you can then go ahead and let me go ahead and go to maybe a browser, and what we're saying is you can do localhost 8080 to get this Airflow environment. And notice that the username and password that you use are Airflow. So the username should be Airflow, the password should be Airflow, guys. For this one, for this local environment, use Airflow as your username and use Airflow as your password. So this is the environment that we just spun up now. This is it. You have to leave this running, else it will fail, right? So you have to leave that running, else it will fail. So let's leave that running, and we go up here and sign in. Once you sign in, you see a file here, right? This is a file right here called process enum PDF AWS. Why is this file here? It is here because we have defined a DAG. Remember, you must have a DAG in your environment to have your Airflow process running. And so Airflow has figured out that there is a DAG file, there's a DAG folder, and there is a DAG defined in there, which I said is basically Python code with some information on it. And you can see that in this DAG, I'm importing some tools that would use. I'm importing the DAG from Airflow, and I'm importing variables. I'm importing a Python operator, which is an operator that DAGs use, and then an S3 hook, which will be enabling me to connect to S3 and get stuff, and so on and so forth. And then date time for dates and all that. And then I'm getting links to the data website. So if I go to this link, for instance, you see data about a particular year, about 2010, right? So I mentioned that we'll be grabbing data in segments. 2010 data 1, so exam 1, 2, 2010 exam 2, 2010 exam 3, 2010 exam 4. So if I go to this link on the website, I should be able to do what? I should be able to see a PDF file. That's the file that we'll grab. Let me just paste this here. That's the file that we'll grab to, you see, this is the file. You see, it's a huge file with so much information on it. But what I want at the end is just to get these questions, just the questions. These are the questions that I want to get at the end of this, right? If somebody is joining here, guys, I'm using this is a YouTube video I'm doing. So please, you guys will connect on a different link today for your classes. So I'm using this for a video. All right. So what we want to do here is we want to grab all of these, we want to grab everything here, right? All the questions you see according to the years. It's a long, kind of thing, but we want to grab all the questions from it, extract all this data. The first thing it will get all this data, all these links that you see here, and put in S3. So we'll get all of these and put in S3. After that, we will extract that information. So this file here will just go in. This is the Airflow process. Grab all of these. We'll establish a connection. We'll be doing that very soon. And then it will download all the folders. You see the download PDFs from year. And then we'll use that year variable, which we'll define on Airflow, and get a connection to S3. And inside S3, we'll create an S3 bucket. Remember, I said we'll create an S3 bucket, and we'll name it, let's see. So down here, let me scroll down a little bit, right from up there. So we'll download the information, and we will upload it. This is the next section of the orchestration. We'll be orchestrating a glue job. So I will show you guys this when the time comes, right? So it looks like people are jumping into class here. I'm using this for something else. Let me pause this. All right, guys. So sorry about that. I was trying to get our students. Some students were jumping on this private link here. All right. So we have we want to download this. This is, let me explain this from top here. So we grab the links on this first section. Then establish our connections. So we'll create a connections in Airflow, and then we have to define a function that actually downloads all of this, right? So this is where we define that function, where it downloads the data. Once we've defined that, you see where it's doing the download and all it's allowing. It will output it into an S3 bucket in that PDF format, right? And according to the year, so you get the data according to the year. And then we have a different function here that will be doing the triggering. Remember, I said we use Airflow as a trigger. So this is the trigger section where it will be triggering a glue job. So this is what this thing here is doing. That's all that it is doing, guys. And remember, I told you we'll define a DAG. This is how you define the DAG. And the DAG is using an operator called a Python operator. This is the operator that a DAG uses. So you define it with DAG, and then all that you define it with all of this information. And you see the bucket where our S3 will be our S3 bucket. So this is our S3 bucket where our data will be stored in S3 once it's downloaded from the website. So you're using this process here to do that. And then we have another operator, which is a glue trigger operator. This is the trigger operator here that will do the triggering for us. So this step will run at the end when it's triggering glue for us once we've reached there. So we have two things that we've defined: download PDF and trigger glue job. You see trigger glue job. These are the processes that you see on the Airflow console. Now that we've started the Airflow environment, let's see what we have on our next program here, on our next step. So the next step is to go into S3 and create a bucket called this. So we want to create a bucket called Primus Learning ENEM this. So you can create your bucket. Go ahead and create a bucket with any name, right? It must not be Primus Learning. You can create your bucket with whatever thing, your name, just make it unique. Give it a suitable name that fits your use case, as we're saying. So let's go into AWS right now and go ahead and create a bucket. So let me see. Let me make sure I log into AWS from here, maybe. So AWS console, management console. I want to log in Yes, with this email and login. All right, so we're logging into AWS and we want to go to S3 and create a bucket. So you want to create a bucket in the same region where everything else that you create today will be running. And so we want to create a bucket in US East 1. And we call our bucket Primus Learning ENEM bucket. It has to be in US East 1. Everything else here can be the same, and you simply hit create. So we've created a bucket called Primus Learning ENEM. That's the next thing. So the next thing we want to do is go and create an IAM role. So, which is this step here, right? So the third step is create an IAM user, or sorry, an IAM user called Primus Learning ENEM. Can call it ENEM user or whatever, and grant it permissions. So we'll be granting this user, let's say we want to grant him full permissions. Let's grant him full access. So administrator access, so that it will not be distracting us from most of the things. So let's go to IAM and create a user. Would call that user Primus Learning ENEM something. So I have a user here when I was preparing for this demo, so I'll just go ahead and delete Primus Learning ENEM and create a new one, just so you work with me through this process. So I'll create a new user called Primus Learning ENEM, and no, I don't need to provide user access to the management console. And so this user, I will grant him administrator access because we'll be using him for different reasons. So go ahead and create this user, right? So we've created this user. You can download entity not found. What is it saying? Entity not found. You've created me a user, but you're telling me entity not found. All right, so we've created this user. Create access keys. So let's generate an access key for this user, right? So we want to create access keys for this user, and we'll call this user this. We want to grant him this access and create. So we've created key pairs for this user called Primus Learning ENEM access key 1. It's making 1 because I created a user yesterday with the same name, right? And created keys for that user. So let's see. This one, it didn't create this user correct. Let me delete and create again, guys. It doesn't feel right to me because I saw it messing up. So let me delete this user and create a new user. I don't know why it messed up that last time, but I will go ahead and create a new user and go ahead and do this. And I want to grant it admin privileges. So I will grant him this permission here and go ahead and do that and review and make sure this user is available. And then I'll create. All right, so this user has been created successfully. Now let's grant this user let's create its credentials, its access credentials, because these are the keys that we want to use. But before that, let me just clear whatever I created before so that it doesn't name this haphazardly here. So I want to delete this one, call it move to trash, yes. And then I want to delete the one I created yesterday for this. So I'll delete this one. Move to trash. All right, can still remove this to trash as well. All right, so let's go ahead and create access keys for this user. I want to give it that kind of CLI thing and create access. So now let's download this one so that it has that Primus Learning ENEM access keys. Okay, so we are done with this section. So that was the third thing that we're doing, right? So we're creating an IAM user called this and granting it permissions. Now let's go back to Airflow. Through this, remember we went to Airflow with localhost 8080. The port is 8080. I want to go to admin and create connections. That's the next thing we want to do. We want to create a connection called AWS connection. and use those keys for that connection. You see the keys we created. We want to go in there and use those keys in our process. So let's go back to Airflow, to our Airflow instance, which is localhost. This is the localhost. And we want to, let me refresh, we want to go to admin and under connections, create a connection. I created a connection yesterday for my demo one. So it brought up, I think it brought up that same instance today. Yeah, so it brought up that same instance today. But yeah, let's go ahead and delete that connection and create a new one so that you see how to create a connection. So delete this connection, go ahead and say, okay, and create a new connection. So this is how you create a connection. You give it a connection ID, which is the name that we just copied, right? So you give it that name. So call it AWS connection. That's what I want you to do. Give it that name. And then here, I want you to select Amazon Web Services. So select Amazon Web Services. You can give it a description and say, connecting Airflow to AWS, right? And then for this access key, you grant the access key permissions that you just downloaded. Remember, we just created this access key for that user. Let's open that up and copy the access key and go back here. So let's go back to that tab and put it here. And for this one, let's go back to here and copy this one and come back to our connection, paste it. And if this looks good, we can test. Let's test if it's able to connect. Yes, it's able to connect, test successful, and then let's save. So we've created this connection, right? Let's not save it. We've created a connection in Airflow. This is very good. This is where we want to be, right? The next step, therefore, is to upload files to AWS using Airflow. So create a Python file inside the DAGS folder. So this is the folder that we want to use. This folder here, right? The DAGS folder. And we're saying that you should create a file there. This is the file that we've created, and it is a Python file. You see, it's named this.py. It's Python file. All right. So in here, we want to create this file, and I've explained what this file does. And once you create this file in here and you go to your Airflow environment, so if you go back to that Airflow environment there, you will see the file here. This is the file. The file name is the way you named your DAG in this file. So you see the way we named our DAG name down here. Our DAG name down here is this. And that's how the file is named, right? It is the same way your file has been named up there. So let's go back here. You see the way our file has been named, and open up this file. When you come up on yours and open it up, you will see it look like something like this, right? You see these ones are triggers because I triggered yesterday for the processes that were running. So today we'll trigger a new one. So once you run this, it will execute the code that is here. This is the code that it will execute. You make changes here, the changes will apply to that instance because it is connected to your local system, right? All right, so let's go back to Airflow and run a process. But let me explain what this Airflow is. You see, we have the DAGS folder here where you can define your DAGs. So under that DAG folder, you can add many DAGs. So in some organizations, in larger organizations that use Airflow, you can see up to 1,000 DAGs that are running here. Those are different processes that are doing different things, right? You could be processing stuff on EMR, you could be processing stuff and putting files in S3, just as we want to do in this process. You could be doing different things. And you can use Airflow to do that. You can also use Airflow to visualize your DAG. So once you run your DAG, for instance, this is one of the DAGs that I run, or this one, you can see the logs of the DAG. You can see everything about the DAG. So if you go here, you open this up, you can see logs. These are logs about your DAG. and you can see, you know, the beautiful workspace, see what fails, what succeeds. Once we trigger this one will probably succeed and this one will fail because we haven't created the glue job yet. So sometimes you can see an acyclic graph here. You see all these beautiful graphs here because of the processes that you've defined, right? So these are the two DAGs, call it two segments, two tasks that we've defined. These are the tasks. These are the two tasks that we've defined here synchronously. So if you have this first task, second task, if you have third task, fourth task, that's how they will appear on your Airflow dashboard up there. All right, so let's go here and trigger the first DAG. And you know what this DAG would do. This DAG will go in and upload files in S3. And remember, this section will fail, as we were saying. You can view it in another way. You see the DAG is starting, so you can click here to see what's happening to the DAG. So see the DAG is running, and there's the DAG ID, this is information about it, how it's triggered. You can automatically trigger it. All right. So this DAG has failed. Let's go and find out why it failed. Something has happened. You see, we said this one will succeed and this one will fail. So it's uploaded data in S3, but this section has failed, guys. So let's go to S3 to the bucket we just created and see if we see any data in here. Sorry, S3. Let's go to S3 and go to that bucket. So the bucket we created was Primus Learning ENEM bucket. And voila, see the 4 years. So we've selected 2017 as our date and we've uploaded data here. You see, this is 4 files for 2017. So they're files, PDF files. And if you download this, you should be able to see the same type of files that we saw on that web link, right? These are the files, same files, PDF files. So that's the first step. We wanted to be able to run a job using Airflow. So basically a DAG that gets PDF files from a website. So extracts PDF files from a website and uploads them to S3. We've done that first step. Now, let's go back here to our README file and see the next one. So we created a connection already and we've uploaded these files, right? We've created a Python file and uploaded these files. Now, create a year variable in the Airflow UI. So we'll go to the UI and create a year variable. So let's go there. The year variable will be scraping the data according to the various years, right? That's what it will do when it goes to the scrape out the data. And so let's go to Airflow again and go to admin, and under variables we want to create a year variable just like this one, right? You see we created a year variable and put the year here. So here as well we can create another variable, but it's just to add, and then the key should be the year and then the value should be maybe 2020, 2018, 2019 if you want. So we've created a variable already. You can go ahead and do the same. No need creating this one again, right? So we have it. It's just to click on this button, create a year value, and that's it, and save. That's all you do. So let's say we've created this variable, not to repeat and make this thing very lengthy. We've created that variable and we've put 2000 and whatever. So you can start with put 2010 and it will increment by 1 as it's grabbing whatever data it's grabbing. Now we've done that part, right? Let's go into AWS and create a Lambda function from scratch. We want to name that Lambda function. This is how we'll name that Lambda function, process enum PDF. So we'll choose, let's choose 3.8, actually. Let's choose 3.8 for our Python runtime. So we'll choose Python as runtime, and we'll create a role as well, a Lambda role, and we'll grant that Lambda role good permission so that it will be, let's just grant it, what type of permissions? Let's grant it admin permissions. We don't want to be dealing with permissions now, so that it can access this bucket. Make sure this role has the read and write permissions in the Primus Learning bucket. so that Primus Learning ENEM bucket, so that it can be able to access it, right? So let's go to Lambda. Let's go up to the console again, go to AWS and create a Lambda function. So I want to go to Lambda, search for Lambda, create a function from scratch. We want to use a scratch, and we said we want to name the function this, and the runtime that we want to use is Python 3.8. This is the runtime we want to use, and all these defaults. And then here we want to create a new role. I have an existing role that I can use, but since we are demoing this, let's create a new role. So we'll use that role later. We'll update that role when we do this. So let's go ahead and create. The rest are okay. Let's go ahead and create. You can put it in a VPC or not. It's fine. Let's go ahead and create this function. We'll have some modifications that we'll do for the function, right? So as you see here, we'll create this function and grant it permissions and do some modifications on it. So let's do that. And then after that, we'll create, I think we'll skip this step. I'll show you what to do, but we'll skip that step. So let's do this. So our function is created. All right. Now this function, okay. Oh. So this function has been created. Let's go ahead and do some work with this function. Right. So configuration, go to configurations, and under general here, I want you to change this because the Lambda function will not only run for 3 seconds. So put 4 minutes here. It will run on about 3 minutes or so. I want you to do that. And then this role, you see that role? I want you see the role here. So go to permissions and go to the role that we created. Where is the role? This is the role up here. I want you to go to this role and add permissions to the role. So just expand on that role, go there, and you see it will have this basic policy on it. I want you to add permissions to this role and add administrator permissions to this role. So once you've added those permissions, you can go back to your Lambda function. You see our Lambda function is almost ready. So we've created that. We can copy the data over now, right? We can copy our Lambda function code up here into this file, right? And so there is this process which creates an environment. We want to create an environment. Why? Because this Lambda function needs some packages that we currently that automatically will not be available if you run them directly from, if you just do a pip install, right? So if you do a pip install on this directly, or you import py PDF2, it will not work. Lambda will not be able to find it. And so to do that, you needed to create a virtual environment and do package all of this code. So package all what you will see in here together, so that why you're doing all of that is just because this Lambda function here, right, needs this package, needs this, but it doesn't have. And so I put a script here to do that, right? So this script, if you want to try it out, so this script right here would go in and package all of it. It will go, you see, it will copy this Lambda function into this folder here called PDF extractor. And then it will go to the site. You put it on the site's packages here. So you put it after here. And then it will go again into the site packages and zip up everything that is there. So it will go in there and run a process and zip up all of this. And then it will move the file again, the zipped file, to out of here. So I've done all the work for you. You don't need to do that. Just grab this file called archive.zip. just upload that file into your Lambda environment. So let's go to the Lambda function again. You see, just upload that file, that zipped archive file. I will have this archive file given to you guys. Just upload this. You contain all the files. You contain all the files that you need already. You see, so it contains all the changes. It contains your Lambda function. You see your Lambda function has been uploaded with everything that is needed. Notice that the Lambda function has some things that you need to change, right? So once you do this, it will be able now to run with this. So this is another way of doing a Lambda layer, right? Instead of building the layer out the way I was showing you here, the way I was showing you to build, you can simply upload all the files, zip all the files in the Lambda layer. So all the files that are under this file, so you can copy all of these files and put them in one folder, right? You see, zip them all up into one folder and just upload them directly, which is what we just did, right? So we've just done that. Let's go back to our Lambda function. So it'll be easier for you to just use the archive file, upload it, and make sure everything is looking good. If you test it of this, of course, it will fail. It will fail because that's not how it's meant to be run, right? This thing has been deployed. That's not how it's meant to be run, because it needs some input from another place. And remember, we said our orchestrator is airflow, so the input will come from airflow, and that's why it's failing here with this error, right? So that's not going to be a worry. Leave this as is, which means we have succeeded to finish this part of our steps, right? This part, you don't need to do this one again. So you skip this part and skip this one because that is the layer we have already uploaded there. So you skip number 10, create a Lambda layer, right? And upload to Lambda by running this, which we've done already. I've done that for you already. You don't need to run that, but you can run that just to test out. But use that layer if you're having errors. Use the one that I already did in this archive file if you're having errors, because to run a layer, to attach a layer in Lambda, you may have some errors as you're doing that. So we've done that. No worries for you to do that part. Now let's add an S3 trigger to the Lambda function and make sure that the suffix is .pdf. Take note of this suffix, guys. .pdf is very important. And the event types are all objects create events. So guys, let's go in to the Lambda function again and add a trigger to it. Remember where we had this trigger? Remember the trigger part, which was here, right? So from here, this trigger, this is what we want to add. Remember, we said it will be an S3 trigger. This is the S3 event trigger that we want to add to this Lambda function right here. So let's go ahead and do that. So go scroll this thing up here. You see where it says trigger? This is where you want to add a trigger, and you want to source the trigger from S3. It is an S3 event trigger that you want to do, and you choose your bucket. Mine is Brazillian ENEM, and that's why you have to create this thing in the same region, right? It has to be in the same region as your bucket and everything. Now the event types, it already automatically selects all object create events. Leave that event as is. On the suffix, guys, very important, use .pdf. Oh, sorry, with small letters, PDF, so that anything that will have a .pdf would be a trigger in that bucket. Anything in that bucket that will end with .pdf, so any file that it sees with a .pdf, it will automatically go and grab and do its work with that PDF. So once the PDF has been uploaded to the path that has been defined in the code, it will automatically do its work. I'll explain this Lambda function again later, right? So acknowledge and save. Remember, if you create a Lambda function and remove and you delete it, right, you have to go to S3 and explicitly delete this trigger to be able to create the next trigger with the same name. So notice that, very important. So we've created a trigger. This code now is able to be triggered from S3. So if you upload PDF file, let me go back to S3. If you upload a PDF file here, it will automatically trigger this Lambda function, is what we are saying. So that's what this Lambda would do. It would trigger that. And then on your code here, you see you've defined your Lambda handler, you've defined everything. You're saying that your S3 bucket will be this, and you have an object, right? And so you scroll down here, we're using the Boto3 client, which is a very powerful Python package that AWS has. You use Boto3 so much as a DevOps person, as a cloud architect who is doing AWS work, right? And so we want to read PDF files using this PDF reader, which is one of them that we imported up here. So you see we imported that one. And then all of this information, just extracting information from it. And then once you've extracted all the information, it will load it up to an S3 bucket. And that S3 bucket has been defined within our code in the trigger. Remember that trigger? You saw the bucket? Yes, it was defined in there. Now, this part has been done, right? We've created a Lambda function. We've modified the configurations to get more than 3 seconds. We've modified the role, this role, to add its thing, and we've added this trigger right here. Now, the next step, so let's go back to our README. I told you this thing will be step by step so that you follow it as is, so that you shouldn't have any errors. Now that that has been done, let's go ahead and create a glue job, a glue crawler, sorry. We want to create a crawler such that when that data is uploaded to S3, we have a data catalog of it, so that once it's processed, it can store a data catalog of that data. So let's go to glue and create a glue crawler. We can name it this. This is how we name our crawler, right? And make sure to select the bucket up to the content folder. Make sure an IAM role is created, and also create a database with the name this. This will create a database with this name. So let's start with the crawler. Let's go up to glue. So let's search for glue. Glue. Glue is an AWS service, which is an ETL service. It's used to extract data, process it, and put it in things. And then go on that data catalog, you'll see what is called a crawler. You see, I created a crawler yesterday. Let's delete this crawler. We don't need it. We want to create a new one. All right, let's refresh and then create crawler. We give it the name we just selected. And you see, leave it as is. Go to the next step. And on this step, is your data already mapped to glue? You want to say, yes, it is mapped to glue. And that's why, because it's in S3, let's add a data source. We want to grab our data from S3, leave this one as is, and then select your bucket. You want to get your bucket. Remember, my bucket is enum this, and go into, so it will be seeing the files here. Let's see. This is a bucket. All right, hold on. So let's trigger this pipeline again so that it creates a folder structure. I want to create a folder structure, the contents folder structure. Let's trigger this so that it creates the folder structure that we want. Let's do this, and then we can grab it. We can grab the folder structure that we want. Once we do this, it will go in and create a so let me show you the logs for this thing as it's running. You see it's running and getting logs. It will go in and upload those files in S3, and this S3 thing would kick in. Once it kicks in, it will crawl that data and come in and put it in an S3 folder called contents. So that's what it's doing. Create a contents folder in there in this bucket. So when it succeeds, it will create a contents folder. All right, it's done that. So you see, if you go back to our S3, you see that these files will increase in number. You see they have increased in number. They have grabbed 2018, started from 2017, it's grabbed 2018. And now we have a contents folder and it has some JSON, right? Remember, we told you the Lambda function was to transform your data to JSON format. This is the same data that is transformed into JSON. So if you download this JSON, you should be able to see the same type of information. This time, it's all in JSON format. It's the same information that was on the PDF, but this time is in JSON format. All right, now let's go back. Let's go back to our, so run that, let's go back to our process. We're in the process of creating a glue thing to go in. So went to this bucket and we're looking for this folder. This is the folder we wanted. We wanted this folder right here. So let's choose that and make sure the content, make sure it ends with that content one, right? It ends with that content because this crawler would map this content as a table on your catalog, as a data catalog. So you go in and create a data catalog for us. So add the source. So we've added the source, want to go to next and create an IAM role if you don't have one. I created one yesterday. So if you just give it a name here, right? Like we can go ahead and create, just give it a name yours, Primus Learning Data Catalog maybe, or something like that, and create. You see, it will create this role and then you can use the role, but you need to grant more permissions to the role. You could just go to the role and grant it admin permissions, right? Go grant it admin permissions. So we have a role here that has, you know, the perfect permissions that we need. No need to create a new one, right? So anyway, let's just use our role so that things are consistent. Sorry about the confusion. And let's go to this role. I want to go to IAM and update that role to have, so we'll go and look for this role, Primus Learning Data Catalog role, and give it admin permissions. So go to roles, data catalog, want to add its permissions. It has just permissions to the glue services. So want to add it so that it's able, this role will be able to run so many things. You're able to have access to S3 and all that, right? So that's what we've done. And we're now using the role. Okay, we've used the role. Let's go to next. Let's create a database if you don't have one. And we said you should name your database ENEM PDF project. So the database is already existing. If you don't have one, you can create it here, right? Just go here, just give it a name and just hit create. That's all. Just go there, give it a name, hit create. So on databases, you see I have one. Let me just delete this one so that it doesn't mess us up. Let me just delete that one. So I would create everything afresh. I thought I'd deleted all these things. So go back to our crawler, create a crawler, give it a name. Our crawler name was supposed to be, so our crawler name, create a crawler, call it this, Primus Learning ENEM crawler. So you can name yours the way you want as well. Give it a name, Primus Learning crawler, go to next. Remember, we just added the source. Select the source, which is S3, this, and then that particular folder. Make sure it's correct there. And then you want to crawl everything under there. And then you add it, sorry, the data source is added already. You go to next, and we select our IAM role, which we just created. Then the database, we've deleted that one now. We can create a new database, right? So let's create a new database now. And I said in my instructions here that you can create a new database called this project, right? ENEM project. So let's go in here and create it called ENEM project. So this is the database, and go ahead and create. Once you've created the database, come back here. Now you have a database to select from, right? You can refresh here. Now you have a database to select from, select that database, and everything here looks good. Leave it on demand because you want to run it once as you need. So we've created that crawler. Now know that this one will spend some money, guys. This one will have some money. It will, once you run it, it will cost some little dollars for you. All right, let's go ahead and run. So we're running a crawler to go and crawl that path in S3, that content path in S3, and create us a catalog, a data catalog in Glue, so that data catalog can be populated with information. And so that's the step we're doing, right? We've created a catalog called, a crawler called this, and we're making sure that the bucket content has this content folder by running that. We run that Lambda function, or we run the orchestrator airflow, which created a content folder and updated some JSON files in there, done by the Lambda function which we created earlier. All right, so make sure your role created under that. So we've done this part. Now we are running our job. So after running the job, we'll just create a glue job to finish the process. So let's go back up there. So the job is successful. It's completed successfully. Yay, just 53 seconds that it used. So you see, if you go back to your tables, you should be able to see, to your databases, you should be able to see these. And if you refresh and go back to tables, I think there should be a table here called contents, and here you are. That's and the table should, I think there's no content on it now because you see this is the catalog that has been created, and this is the table called contents, and there shouldn't be any content on it, just these strings created. And your data source is AWS data catalog. The database name is this, and your table is the one that we just created in Glue. This is perfect. This is all what we wanted to do, right? You have your table name, which is content. You have your database called this. You have your location. The classification is JSON here, and everything looks good because it's JSON format data that we are uploading. So this is looking good, guys. We've completed this process. Now let's go back to Glue and go to ETL jobs. We want to create an ETL job, a Glue job. I chose to use Spark because the script is written in Spark. And so if I go back to our script here, so you see we had scripts, right? So if we go back to scripts, go back to this one, and look at the scripts we have. This is the script we want to use. This script right here. This is the script we want to use for this process, guys. And so what will happen with this script is, let me explain a little bit. It's a Spark job. You will go in, you have to define the Spark context and define the database that you want to run against. So this Spark would run against this database which we created earlier, and the table name where it will be updating information is called content. That's the table. And so it will do some work here, print schema, so we get all those schemas up there, the data schema, and it will extract all the text information. So this is where the processing occurs, right? Down here from here. This is where the processing occurs. It will go into each of the JSON things, JSON files, and extract that information. Extract anything that is a question that start with a question marker, right? It will start with a question marker. It will extract all the questions. You will get the question number, and you see it's in Spanish. This guy is Spanish. You get all the questions, and then it will upload the file into an S3 bucket in a path called processed path, and it will be written in CSV format. So it will write this thing as a glue job, right? So this is all this glue job will be doing. So this is the job we'll upload to glue. So you can just copy this. So just copy all this content here and go back to glue. Go back to glue and create a glue job. So what we want to do is we want to use this editor right here, the Spark script editor, to create a script. So we already have a script, so no need, we can just upload from where, select from there and upload, right? So let's just do that, upload. So we go to this path and upload this file called process PDF glue job. This is the file we want to upload, and upload it here. Now this is uploaded. You can simply go and create your job. You see your job has been created. It's uploaded that file. You could also just copy the file and paste here, no problem. But now you have to give a job name, and we are proposing that you give your job name like this. Give it a job name called this. So that's the job name you want to give it. And let's go back and give it a job name, because that name is awkward. And then remember to select a role. Now we have some roles that we've created earlier, and we've given it admin privileges, so we can use this role, right? Remember that role that we created, we gave it admin privileges, so even glue can use that role, right? So let's use this role, and it has access to the data catalog. So the role you create, if you want to limit permissions, has to have access to the data catalog. It has to be able to do all the writes and all the reads at the same time. So what we're using here is Python, right? It runs Spark, it runs all of these things for you. It has, this is the glue version we're using, and the language is Python. And then you want to limit the number of this, else it will charge you much. So automatically scale the number of workers. We want to use just 4 workers because it's not a big job that we are running. So we'll do that, leave everything as is, and go ahead and save our job. So we've saved our job. You could run your job from here, but that's not what we want to do, right? We want to run the job from our orchestrator. You see this job, this is the last part. And on our DAG, we told the DAG to trigger a job called Spark job. And so if you go back to your DAG code, which is in here, you see that we asked it to trigger a job named this, right? That's the name of the DAG that we just create, of the job that we just created in glue. And this is the step, trigger glue. And it will go in and trigger that job in glue. This is a Python operator for that, you know, Apache Airflow uses to trigger a glue job. So let's do that by triggering our Airflow. Now, Airflow will run an end-to-end process. What will happen? Airflow will run this first process. So it will go again and grab data from that website. Remember, it will grab data from that website, go in and put it in S3. Then the S3, since we have a trigger, S3 will trigger a Lambda function that will transform that data or extract that data into JSON format and put it in a contents folder, which we have in S3. I showed you the contents folder in S3. So that's the work of the glue job that we just did, right? Remember the glue job? So what will happen is that glue job will be executed because of the trigger that we did on the S3. So once these files are uploaded here, what will happen? It will trigger a job. So if you go to triggers, I think if you go here and go, you will see a trigger somewhere, which is attached to this bucket. It is the trigger that we defined earlier. I think we should be under properties. Yeah, this is the trigger right here. So you see, the trigger says, if you see anything that is in PDF format that drops in this bucket in this format, go ahead and create this Lambda function. go to that Lambda function and trigger it. That's what it does. All right. So once we run that process, the airflow process, it will go grab files and come and drop them here. Once it's dropped them here, it will trigger an S3 thing. That S3 thing will get all the data here and transform it into JSON format and put the JSON format in this folder called content. Once this has been put in this content, the content has been linked to our job. Our job, it will trigger. So once it's here, right, we'll trigger a job. So it's done by Airflow, the Airflow process. So this second process will trigger a glue job, which is this glue job that we've defined here, to go in and extract some information from it and put it back into this S3 bucket. This time not in content, but this time it'll create a file here called processed. And inside that processed file, you should be able to see CSV data with just the questions that have been extracted from that JSON file. That's what the whole pipeline will be doing. Now, once you've done this, you can schedule it to run every time. You can put it on. So you see this dark, you can put on this dark and then schedule it. You see the schedule here, and it will next run at this time. You can schedule it to run at that time or run whenever your process needs or to run, right? Maybe those files will be dropping at 7 p.m. When it drops at 7 p.m., this thing just kicks in and runs. So this is a complete data pipeline. Now let's execute and see if this will be successful. So let's go back and refresh to see a new run. You can see the new run is starting. So it is currently going to that website and grabbing all the PDF files. And once it uploads the PDFs, it will be uploaded here. So you can see that there are a few PDFs here. More will be added. More will be added. We have about 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think 8. Yeah, 8. So there are 8 or 9 even. One or more are being added. Yep. So now more have been added. Once it's been added, you see, so if we go back to see if that first step was successful. Oh, so this one has failed. This glue job has failed. Let's see the reason for its failure. So this is where you begin debugging, right, to see what happened. So let's see what happened. So using let's see. So it failed. So connections were retrieved, and then an error occurred. Entity not found when calling the start job operation, failed to start job run due to missing metadata. So it didn't see something. So probably it didn't see something on the job. So let's go and see if we can fix that. I think either the glue job is not named correctly. Let's edit. What did you not see? The glue job is named correctly here. Does it have data here? Did you see data? Yes, it uploaded data here. And so what is failing? Let's go to the glue job itself and see if it's the glue job that failed. So let's go to runs, refresh. So it actually did not run. It was not able to see that glue job. So let's see what's happening with the glue. Let's go to our jobs. So this is the one that succeeded. Let's go back and go to jobs. This is the job we created. So why is it not able to see this job? Let's see. Okay, let's go back here. and delete this job and recreate it. Let's recreate this job. It looks like something happened and it's not seeing this job. Maybe the name was not correctly configured. Let's delete job, delete, and recreate. Let's recreate this job. Nope, we don't want to put a script. No, we don't want to create. This is not what we want to do. Sorry. This isn't what we want to do. Delete. So we want to use this and upload the file. And that file should be called this job. So that's uploaded. We'll create. And we want to name it this. So hope we're naming it correctly and it has no spaces. All right. Then let's choose an IAM role, which is that one. And this type here is Spark. Everything is looking good. We give it 4. And number of retries. No, we don't want to do the number of retries thing. And we save our job. Let's test our job and see if it's successful. So I want to manually test it and see if it runs successfully before we trigger it. So our job is running. Let's give it some time and see. And then while it's running, let's see the script. Let's make sure the script is looking good. Primus learning enum bucket processed. Okay. Our bucket is defined here. Let's go back to the run. It's still running. Let's just make sure everything looks good before we trigger our process again. Still running. So it takes a couple of minutes or so to run. You can see the output of this run right below here, or you can go see it in CloudWatch logs, right? So this is the output down here. You can go really grab it there or see it directly here as it's running. It outputs your information here. And so this is where the real work is done, right? It's processing a lot of information. Glue is an ETL process, an ETL tool that goes in and processes data very fast. So this one is trying to extract information from that table and from the JSON format and extract just the questions and put it in. Once it's done the extraction, it will put it in the CSV section. So it's a lot of work that this job is doing, right? And that's why it's taking some time. So our job is successful, which means this job is running as expected. Now, the only thing is we need to trigger this Airflow to be able to run that job. And so that's the last part that failed. Let's do that again. Let's trigger and trigger. So our glue job is running. It will run through the same process again, just as we've been saying. Let's give it a moment. Oops, where did I move my so I moved it away, sorry. Carry it, bring it back here and see your logs. Yeah, I refreshed it. So let's see if the code is looking good. Let's make sure this job name is the same as we have it here on our glue. So if I just search, let's see. Yep, that's the same name. Okay, good. Let's check again to see if the DAG fails. Oh, yes, our DAG is successful. Our DAG is successful, which means this job has triggered. It worked as expected, guys. Now let's go back to S3. What are we expecting? We're expecting a processed folder. We're expecting a processed folder here. And inside this process folder, we should see files that have been processed. Guys, this is exactly what we're expecting. We should see CSV files that have been processed, and these CSV files would have questions on the exam. And so if you open this up and scroll to this is okay, this is the one. These are the questions that is selecting. Update table or what? I don't know what this thing is doing. No, this is not the way it should show up here. Let me delete this one and reopen it. Let me the Mac is not very friendly when it comes to some of these things. And don't think you don't use my keys, I'll delete them after this. So Mac is not very friendly when it comes to some of these Excel stuff or these CSV files. Okay. All right, let me pull it up. This is the one that we just downloaded. Let me just double click on it and see. Adjust. So this is the information, this is the data, but why am I not able to see it the way it's looking here? Because it's just, you see, this is the data the way it's looking. These are the questions. This is question 12. This is question this. You should be able to see it in Windows very nicely. But on this here, I'm not seeing the data correctly. Oh yeah, the data is on this side. Yeah, that's true. So this is the year. You see, it classifies it according to year, right? 2018, these are the questions. This is question 5 or 2018, question 6, and so on and so forth. So it extracts the needed information as expected, guys. So you can see the information. If I expand this thing, let me be sure that I expand and you're seeing correctly. All the information as expected is output here in your CSV format, and it shows you the bucket and the information that is this is the file, this is the PDF file from where it got that information, and it just gives you everything and the question numbers and everything, guys. So that's what I wanted to show you guys in this demo. I hope it was helpful. Because it takes time to put this together. I hope it was helpful to you. Let's put down this and let me walk you through. So we have our data processed here in this folder. Now we can go ahead and delete all of these because if you leave them, these resources may cost you. So let's go first and delete our bucket. Our bucket is this. We'll have to delete the content in the bucket first before deleting, the bucket itself. So say permanently delete, just copy permanently delete from here. And I'm going typing. Permanently delete, space. So delete the object and then delete the bucket. So let's delete the bucket. That's the bucket name. Delete. And give the bucket name. Delete. Then let's go to Lambda and delete the Lambda. Let's go to glue actually and delete this glue job. These are the glue jobs that succeeded. So let's go to glue and delete this glue job. Delete, and then delete the one below it, all of the jobs. Make sure there's no job that's found here. All right, it's deleted. Let's go to Lambda. Let's go to Lambda. Oh, let's delete the database. Sorry, we didn't delete the database. Delete the database. And delete everything about it. The crawlers, let's delete the crawlers. Don't forget the crawler, guys. Delete crawler. Now let's go to Lambda. The crawler is deleting. Let's go to Lambda and delete our Lambda function. So delete our Lambda function. We don't need it again. Delete. All right, our Lambda function is deleted. Now, I think we've cleaned up all the stuff in AWS. How do you power down this thing that's running here? You go back to the same path. You can just same path where we're, right? Like we're here. This is where the file is. You just go here, right click, bring up a new terminal, and just do docker compose down. So the other command we used was up. This one is down. You just bring it down, and your airflow will be brought down. And that's the end of our tutorial, guys. I just wanted to walk you through the step-by-step processes to make sure that you're able to have a working project. This was a working project presented to you, and you can use this for whatever purposes, for maybe to extract your data for your company, or maybe you're building a small gig, you can do this. Or maybe you just want to use this as a project for your interviews. This is an end-to-end project that you can do in a whole, in a job. And really, as an AWS data engineer, this is what you can do, or an AWS solutions architect. This is a complete end-to-end project that you can work on for an organization for a long time. And so hope this was helpful. The code here, I'll just put it in, GitHub, and put the link to the GitHub repository in the description section of this video, guys. Please don't forget to share this video with your friends, and also hit the subscribe button to our channel so that we can continue to bring you more content. Also let us know your views, your what you think about this. Shout out to João, Pedro, for his article that inspired this presentation. Thumbs up to you, man. You did a great job. And yeah, you can follow the architecture here. You can use the code and get your environment up and running. Get the hands dirty with AWS work, with data pipelining, and get some basic extraction work going as well. So thanks for watching. My name is Primus Veku here at Primus Learning. Bye-bye.